Marcus Chen stared at the alien slave market with disgust churning in his stomach. The sprawling bazaar on Kepler Station stretched for kilometers under artificial sunlight, filled with the worst kind of people the galaxy had to offer. Slavers, pirates, and wealthy collectors browsed through cages containing dozens of different species, all reduced to property by the corrupt Galactic Trade Consortium. He shouldn't be here. Every fiber of his being screamed against participating in this horror. But, intel had been clear, the only way to infiltrate the Zephyrian Empire's inner circle was to play their game. Become one of them. Buy slaves like they did, act like he belonged in their twisted society. The irony wasn't lost on him. 15 years ago, he'd been the one in chains. Marcus ran his fingers unconsciously over his left forearm, feeling the raised skin beneath his sleeve. The tattoo hidden there had saved his life during the Proxima raids, marking him as property of a benevolent owner when the Real slavers came. Captain Sarah Martinez had given him that mark, a fake ownership brand that kept him from the worst fates while the Resistance planned their rescue operation. Now he was 35, a decorated officer in Earth's deep space intelligence, and, supposedly shopping for alien servants like some kind of monster. Welcome, honored customer. A greasy Zephyrian merchant approached, his forearms gesticulating wildly. His scaled skin gleamed with expensive oils, and his compound eyes reflected Marcus's image 100 times. I am Vexhai, the procurement specialist. I have the finest specimens from across the Outer Rim. Marcus forced himself to nod coolly. I'm looking for something specific. Hardy workers, intelligent enough to follow complex orders but not smart enough to cause trouble. Ah yes, yes. The perfect balance. Vexhai rubbed his hands together with a wet sliding sound. Might I suggest some Altarian miners? Very strong, bred for heavy labor. Or perhaps some Rigelian technicians? Excellent with machinery, very obedient once properly trained. They walked between the cages, and Marcus fought to keep his expression neutral. A family of blue-skinned humanoids huddled together, their children clinging to their parents. Insectoid creatures clicked and chittered in distress. Something that looked like a cross between a wolf and a dolphin paced endlessly in a space barely large enough for it to turn around. What about those? Marcus pointed toward a group of bipedal reptilians with distinctive bronze scales. Ah, excellent eye. Those are Saurian workers from the Vega system. Very resilient, can work in extreme temperatures. They've been properly conditioned, no rebellion left in them at all. Vexhai laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The Zephyrians broke that planet's spirit most thoroughly. Marcus's jaw tightened. The Zephyrian Empire had a reputation for brutality that made even hardened criminals nervous. They didn't just conquer worlds, they systematically destroyed the will to resist, turning proud civilizations into docile labor forces within a generation. I'll take a closer look, Marcus said, approaching the cage. The Saurians barely reacted to his presence. Their heads hung low, eyes vacant. These beings had once been warriors, Marcus could tell by their build and the way they unconsciously maintained defensive postures even in defeat. Now they were broken shells. All except one. In the back corner of the cage, a female Saurian sat perfectly still, but her golden eyes tracked Marcus's every movement. Where the others showed resignation, she radiated barely contained fury. She was smaller than the males, but something about her bearing suggested she was far more dangerous. Marcus was about to turn away when she shifted position, and her sleeve rode up slightly. His blood turned to ice. There, on her scaled forearm, was a tattoo that made his world tilt on its axis. Not the design, though that was shocking enough, an intricate pattern of earth roses intertwined with ancient Chinese characters. It was the style, the specific needlework, the way the ink had been applied. He knew that tattoo. He'd watched it being created. 15 years ago, in the basement of a bombed-out building on Proxima Colony, Captain Sarah Martinez had worked by candlelight with makeshift equipment to ink protection marks onto captured humans. Marcus had been there, recovering from his own branding, when she'd tattooed a young woman named Lisa Park. A xenobiologist who'd been studying peaceful first contact protocols when the slavers hit. But Lisa Park was human. This creature in the cage was clearly not. The Saurian woman's eyes met his, and, for just a moment, her reptilian features seemed to flicker. Like looking through water, Marcus caught a glimpse of familiar brown eyes in a human face he'd known years ago. "I'll take that one," Marcus said quietly, pointing to the female. Vexhai looked surprised. "That one? Sir, I must warn you, she's been problematic. Killed 2 guards during transport, refuses to eat regularly, shows no signs of proper conditioning. The others are much more suitable for," I said. "I'll take that one." Marcus's voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "And, I want her cleaned up and delivered to docking bay 12 within the hour." The merchant's greed overcame his confusion. "Of course, honored customer. Though I must charge a premium for the inconvenience she's caused." "Done." Marcus transferred credits without looking at the amount, his mind racing. "One more thing. I want her personal effects. Everything that was taken from her when she was captured." "Sir, slaves don't usually, everything." Marcus's hand moved casually to his sidearm. "I'm paying premium prices. I expect premium service." An hour later, Marcus paced his ship's small cargo bay as the delivery shuttle arrived. His vessel, the Meridian, was built for deep space reconnaissance, fast, well-armed, and equipped with the best stealth technology Earth could provide. Perfect for a spy's work. 2 Zephyrian guards shoved the Saurian woman into his cargo bay with electric prods, clearly eager to be rid of her. She moved with fluid grace despite the restraints, never taking her eyes off Marcus. "Here are her effects," one guard grunted, tossing a small bag onto the deck. "Not much. Some kind of medallion, a data pad, and a few personal items. All scanned for weapons and cleared." After they left, Marcus sealed the bay and activated privacy screens. Only then did he approach the woman, who watched him with predatory intensity. "My name is Marcus Chen," he said carefully. "I'm not your enemy." The Saurian woman tilted her head, studying him. When she spoke, her voice carried a distinctly human inflection despite the reptilian vocal cords. "Prove it." Marcus rolled up his sleeve, revealing the faded tattoo on his forearm. "Captain Sarah Martinez gave me this in 2387. Proxima Colony, Building 7, basement level. You were there. Your name is Dr. Lisa Park, and you were supposed to be leading a xenobiology survey when the raiders hit." For a long moment, the only sound was the ship's life support systems humming. Then, the woman's form began to shimmer and shift. Scales faded to pale skin, golden reptilian eyes became brown and human, and the alien bone structure melted into familiar features. Dr. Lisa Park stood before him, still wearing restraints but no longer hiding behind alien camouflage. She looked older, harder, marked by 15 years of experiences he could only imagine. But it was definitely her. "Shapeshifter," Marcus breathed. "That's how you survived." "Biomimetic adaptation," Lisa corrected, her voice now fully human. "The Zephyrians thought they'd captured a Saurian warrior. They never imagined they had a human scientist who'd undergone experimental genetic modification." Marcus began working on her restraints with a plasma cutter. "The Xenobiology project. You were studying adaptive camouflage in deep space species. I volunteered for the prototype procedure 3 months before the raid." Lisa rubbed her wrists as the restraints fell away. The idea was to create diplomatic personnel who could blend in with alien populations. Make first contact less threatening. Instead, it saved your life when the slavers came. "Saved my life, yes. But cost me everything else." Lisa's voice carried bitter weight. "Do you know what it's like to forget your own face? To spend 15 years becoming other people, other species, until you're not sure what's real anymore?" Marcus handed her the bag of personal effects. "Tell me what happened after Proxima." Lisa opened the bag with shaking hands, pulling out a small silver medallion, her father's war decoration from the Titan campaign. She clutched it tightly. The rescue never came for me. I was already in Saurian form when your people arrived. They didn't know to look for a human who looked like an alien. Why didn't you reveal yourself? By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. The slavers were moving their merchandise off-world. I was trapped with a group of real Saurians, and breaking cover would have gotten us all killed. Lisa's laugh held no humor. So I stayed in character. Learned their language, their customs, their way of thinking. I became Veskara the warrior. For 15 years? Time moves differently when you're property, Lisa said quietly. Days blend into months, months into years. I fought when I had to, hid when I could, and slowly worked my way up the slave hierarchy. Saurians respect strength above all else. As Veskara, I became their unofficial leader. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. You've been organizing them. Planning something. Lisa's smile was sharp and predatory, more Saurian than human. The Zephyrian Empire thinks it broke us. They're wrong. We've been gathering intelligence, mapping their supply chains, identifying key weaknesses. There are slave populations on hundreds of worlds, and they're all connected through the underground networks I've helped build. My God, Marcus whispered. You've turned their own slave trade into a resistance movement. The largest intelligence network in the galaxy, Lisa confirmed. And they never saw it coming because they can't imagine their property being capable of strategic thinking. Marcus's mind raced through the implications. His mission had been to gather information on Zephyrian military capabilities and find ways to disrupt their expansion toward Earth space. Instead, he'd stumbled across something infinitely more valuable. I need to get you back to Earth Command, he said. They'll want to debrief you, coordinate with your network, no. Lisa's voice was firm. I'm not going back. Not yet. Lisa, you've done more than enough. 15 years, I have responsibilities. She gestured toward the space where the other Saurians had been. Those people trusted me. Veskara doesn't abandon her warriors. Marcus stared at her, seeing the truth in her eyes. She wasn't fully human anymore, not after what she'd endured. The woman who'd volunteered for experimental procedures to advance xenobiology had become something harder, more complex. She was a bridge between species, shaped by suffering into something entirely new. What do you need? He asked finally. Transport to the Kepler mining colonies, Lisa said immediately. There's a slave revolt planned for next week. Without proper coordination, it'll be a massacre. But, with the right support, you could free an entire system. And cripple Zephyrian mining operations in this sector. Lisa's expression was grim. But, more importantly, we could save thousands of lives and prove that resistance is possible. Marcus felt the weight of the decision. His orders were specific: gather intelligence and report back. Getting involved in a slave rebellion wasn't part of the mission parameters. But, looking at Lisa, seeing what she'd become and what she'd built from nothing but determination and hope. Meridian has stealth capabilities and enough firepower to make a difference, he said slowly. How many slaves are we talking about? 12 mining platforms, roughly 8,000 individuals from 40 different species. Lisa's eyes gleamed. And, Marcus? They're all organized, all ready to fight. They just need someone to give them hope that humans haven't forgotten them. Marcus thought of his tattoo, of Captain Martinez and the basement where desperate people had clung to the belief that someone would come for them. Someone had come, eventually. But Lisa had been left behind, forced to save herself and everyone she could reach. Now he could change that. Docking Bay 12 was a good choice, Marcus said with a grim smile. It's in the lower security section. We can slip out without drawing attention. You're really going to help? Dr. Lisa Park died 15 years ago, Marcus said, beginning the startup sequence for his ship. But Veskara the Liberator is about to become a legend. As the Meridian powered up and prepared to leave Kepler Station, neither of them noticed the small tracking device attached to the hull. Dexhai the merchant had been suspicious of the strange human who paid premium prices for problematic merchandise. The Zephyrian Trade Authority would be very interested in where their unusual customer was planning to take his new property. The game was beginning, and the stakes were higher than anyone realized. The Kepler mining system was a graveyard of dead worlds stripped bare by Zephyrian extraction operations. 12 asteroid platforms floated in the void like mechanical parasites, their massive drilling arms boring into the rocky cores of what had once been moons. Each platform housed between 600 and 800 slaves of dozens of different species, all working in shifts that never ended. Marcus guided the Meridian through the outer sensor perimeter using stealth protocols that made his ship invisible to standard detection methods. Beside him, Lisa studied tactical displays with the focused intensity of a predator planning a hunt. She'd remained in her human form since leaving Kepler Station, but Marcus could see traces of her other identities in her movements and expressions. There, Lisa pointed to a particular platform designated Mining Station Vega 7. That's where we start. My contact there is a Rigelian engineer named Cathvar. He's been coordinating with resistance cells across all 12 platforms for the past 3 years. Marcus adjusted their approach vector. How did you build all this without the Zephyrians noticing? They see what they expect to see, Lisa replied with bitter satisfaction. Broken slaves who've accepted their fate. They never imagined that their property might be intelligent enough to organize on this scale. She pulled up schematics on her data pad. The mining platforms are connected by cargo transport tubes. During shift changes, there's a 15-minute window where slaves move between stations. We've been using those moments to pass information for years. The Meridian slipped between 2 massive asteroids, using their bulk to mask its approach to Vega 7. Marcus could see the platform's brutal efficiency, a dark metal structure bristling with mining equipment and defensive weapons. Spotlights swept the surrounding space in regular patterns, but the Meridian stealth systems made it invisible to their sensors. There, Lisa indicated a maintenance airlock on the platform's underside. That's our entry point. Cathvar will have disabled the sensors for exactly 17 minutes during the next shift change. Marcus checked his chronometer. That's in 4 minutes. You sure about this timing? These people have been planning this rebellion for 3 years, Lisa said as she strapped on a breathing apparatus and checked her gear. They know exactly how long they have before someone notices the disabled sensors. 17 minutes to get inside, 15 minutes to reach the coordination center, then, chaos. As they docked with the airlock, Marcus felt the familiar pre-mission tension. But this was different from his usual intelligence operations. This time, he was walking into the middle of the largest slave rebellion in galactic history. The airlock cycled, and they emerged into a dimly lit maintenance corridor that thrummed with the vibrations of massive drilling equipment. The air tasted of metal dust and recycled atmosphere. Lisa moved with silent confidence, clearly familiar with the platform's layout despite never having been on this particular station. The coordination center is 12 levels up, she whispered. But, first, we need to, footsteps echoed from ahead. Lisa immediately shifted, her human features flowing into the bronze-scaled appearance of her Saurian identity. Marcus pulled his sidearm, but she gestured for him to wait. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, insectoid, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the corridor's emergency lighting. One of the Rigelians Lisa had mentioned. The being moved with careful precision, clearly nervous but determined. Veskara, the Rigelian clicked in accented standard. You came. We had hoped, but, after your capture. I told you I would return, Cathvar, Lisa replied, her voice carrying Saurian overtones. This is the human I mentioned. Marcus. He has agreed to help. Cathvar's compound eyes fixed on Marcus with unnerving intensity. A human. Like the old stories. Are you truly here to help free us? Marcus felt the weight of the moment. To this being, humans weren't just another species, they were legends, myths of people who fought back against impossible odds and, sometimes won. The responsibility was staggering. I'm here because no one should live in chains, Marcus said simply. Tell me what you need. Kefvar's rigid posture relaxed slightly. Come. The others are gathering. They moved through the platform's maze-like interior, and Marcus began to understand the scope of what Lisa had accomplished. Everywhere they passed, slaves went about their assigned duties, but Marcus noticed subtle signals, a touch here, a gesture there, coded communications passing between different species like an invisible web of coordination. The coordination center turned out to be an abandoned storage bay deep in the platform's core. As they entered, Marcus felt his breath catch. Dozens of beings were already assembled: Saurians, Rigelians, blue-skinned Altarians, several species he didn't recognize, and even a few that looked disturbingly like modified humans. But it was their organization that impressed him most. This wasn't a desperate mob plotting a doomed uprising. These people had command structures, tactical assignments, contingency plans. They'd turned their oppression into military precision. Status reports, Lisa said without preamble, slipping effortlessly into the role of commander. Marcus realized that to these people, she wasn't Dr. Lisa Park, the human xenobiologist. She was Veskara, the Saurian war leader who'd given them hope. All platforms report readiness, Kefvar announced. Explosive charges are in place on critical support structures. Communication arrays will be disabled simultaneously. Guard rotations have been mapped and marked for neutralization. A massive Altairan stepped forward, his blue skin marked with ritual scars. The mining crews on platforms 4 and 7 have secured plasma cutters for use as weapons. Platform 9 reports success in accessing the armory. Casualties? Lisa asked. 3 discovered during preparation. 2 Rigelians on platform 5, 1 human on platform 3. All died under interrogation without revealing the plan. Marcus felt a chill. People had died for this. The rebellion wasn't theoretical anymore, it was paid for in blood. We honor their sacrifice by succeeding, Lisa said formally, and every being in the room repeated the phrase in their own languages. It created a strange harmony of clicks, whistles, growls, and human voices. A young Saurian approached with obvious nervousness. Veskara, what of the Zephyrian response? When they realize what's happening. The Zephyrian fleet is currently engaged in the Centauri expansion, Marcus interjected, consulting his intelligence briefings. Their nearest quick response force is 6 days away at best. And, by then, we'll be gone, Lisa added. Every platform has escape pods and shuttles. Once we disable the mining operations and free everyone, we scatter to the rally points I've established. Kefvar pulled up a holographic display showing the 12 platforms. The sequence begins in 43 minutes when the night shift takes over. Reduced guard presence, most supervisors asleep. We strike all platforms simultaneously to prevent any warning signals. Marcus studied the tactical situation. What about pursuit? Even if the main fleet is delayed, they'll send hunters. That's where you come in, Lisa said, turning to him. Your ship has military-grade stealth and weapons. We need you to eliminate the communication relays and tracking stations in this system. Without those, the Zephyrians will be hunting blind. The weight of the plan settled on Marcus's shoulders. He was being asked to commit acts of war against the Zephyrian Empire. His mission parameters didn't cover this level of engagement. But, looking around the room at these beings who'd suffered for years under slavery. Consider it done, Marcus said. But, I need detailed locations of all enemy installations. A new voice spoke from the back of the room. I can provide those. Everyone turned as a figure stepped into the light. Marcus's blood froze. The speaker was human, clearly, genuinely human, not a shape-shifted alien. A woman in her 40s with short gray hair and the bearing of someone used to command. Commander Sarah Martinez, Earth Defense Force, the woman said calmly. Retired. Lisa's Saurian form flickered with shock. Captain? How are you here? The same way you survived, Dr. Park. By becoming someone else. Sarah gestured to a collar around her neck, clearly a slave control device. I've been tracking you for 3 years through intelligence channels. When I heard about Beskara the Liberator, I knew it had to be you. Marcus felt the world shifting around him. You're supposed to be dead. Killed in action during the Vega campaign 5 years ago. Sarah's smile was grim. Officially, yes. Unofficially, I've been working undercover to map the slave trade networks. This rebellion is exactly what Earth needs to justify military action against the Zephyrian Empire. Your intelligence, Lisa said, understanding flooding her transformed features. This whole thing, is it a setup? No. Sarah's voice was firm. These people's suffering is real. Their desire for freedom is real. But, Earth has been looking for justification to move against the Zephyrians. A successful slave rebellion, led by humans who were thought dead? That's a story that will rally the entire galaxy. Marcus felt torn between duty and betrayal. How long have you known about the rebellion? I've been helping plan it for 2 years, Sarah admitted. But, not controlling it. These people chose to fight. I just made sure they had the resources to succeed. An alarm began sounding throughout the platform, a low, rhythmic pulse that made everyone tense. Shift change, Kethvar announced. Time to move. The assembled beings began filing out, each heading to their assigned positions. Lisa remained in her saurian form but grabbed Marcus's arm. Can we trust her? She asked quietly. Marcus looked at Sarah Martinez, the woman who'd saved his life 15 years ago by giving him a fake tattoo. The woman who'd apparently faked her own death to work undercover in the worst corners of the galaxy. I trusted her with my life once, Marcus said. But, that was a different war. Sarah approached them as the room emptied. Marcus, I need you to understand something. This rebellion will succeed or fail on its own merits. But, Earth needs witnesses to what happens here. The galaxy needs to see that humans don't abandon their own. Even when their own have become something else? Lisa asked, gesturing to her scaled appearance. Especially then. Sarah's expression softened. Dr. Park, you've become something remarkable. A bridge between species, a leader who understands what it means to be both human and alien. That's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Another alarm sounded, different pitch and pattern. Emergency stations. They found the disabled sensors, Marcus realized. We're out of time. Go, Sarah urged. Get to your ship and start hitting those communication relays. The rebellion begins in 12 minutes whether we're ready or not. As they raced back through the platform's corridors, Marcus could feel the tension building. Slaves who'd been going about their duties with apparent resignation now moved with purpose. Guards who'd seemed alert and controlling suddenly looked outnumbered and isolated. Marcus, Lisa said as they reached the maintenance airlock. Whatever happens, make sure the galaxy knows we tried. You're going to succeed, Marcus replied with conviction he hoped he felt. And, then, the real work begins. They separated at the airlock, Lisa heading deeper into the platform to coordinate the rebellion, Marcus returning to the Meridian to begin his assault on the system's infrastructure. As his ship powered up and prepared to engage the enemy, Marcus checked his chronometer. 8 minutes until the largest slave rebellion in galactic history began. He thought of his tattoo, of Sarah Martinez in a basement 15 years ago, of Lisa Park who'd spent 15 years becoming someone else in order to save thousands of lives. The irony was perfect, a fake mark of slavery had led to the largest liberation in human history. The first communication relay appeared on his targeting system. Marcus armed his weapons and prepared to start a war. The first communication relay died in a brilliant flash of plasma fire. Marcus watched through the Meridian's viewports as the massive antenna array crumpled under his ship's assault, its quantum transmitters going dark one by one. 3 more relays orbited the mining platforms at strategic points. He had maybe 6 minutes to eliminate them all before the rebellion started. His ship's stealth systems were holding, but each weapon's discharge created energy signatures that the enemy sensors could track. It was only a matter of time before the Zephyrians realized they were under attack. Second target acquired, Marcus muttered to himself, adjusting course toward the next relay. The Meridian responded like a living thing, its AI-assisted flight systems working in perfect harmony with his intentions. Earth's finest technology, built for exactly this kind of operation. The second relay never had a chance. Marcus's missile struck its reactor core dead center, and the entire structure vanished in a miniature sun that briefly lit up the asteroid field. Emergency signals started broadcasting on all Zephyrian frequencies, confusion, alarm, demands for status reports. On his tactical display, Marcus could see the mining platforms beginning to come alive. Running lights that had been steady for years started flickering in coordinated patterns. Platform Vegas 7 went dark completely for 30 seconds, then came back online with different emission signatures. The rebellion had begun. Marcus targeted the third relay, but this time he faced return fire. The Zephyrians had equipped their communication stations with defensive weapons, and particle beams lanced out toward his position. The Meridian's shields absorbed the impact, but Marcus felt the ship shudder under the assault. "Let's see how you handle this," he growled, launching a full spread of torpedoes while simultaneously diving toward the asteroid field. The relay's defense guns tracked him desperately, but Marcus was flying with 15 years of combat experience and intimate knowledge of his ship's capabilities. The torpedoes struck home, and the third relay joined its companions in destruction. One more to go. The fourth relay had learned from the other's fate. As Marcus approached, he found it surrounded by a defensive screen of automated gun platforms that someone had clearly deployed in a hurry. The Zephyrians were adapting faster than he'd hoped. But Marcus had advantages they couldn't counter. The Meridian stealth systems were several generations ahead of anything the Zephyrians had encountered, and his ship's AI had been analyzing their targeting patterns since the first engagement. Computer, attack pattern Delta 7. Full evasive maneuvers, concentrate fire on the relay's main transmitter. The ship's response was immediate and devastating. While the defensive platforms tried to track a target that seemed to flicker in and out of existence, Marcus's weapons carved through their formation like a blade. The main relay lasted 15 seconds longer than its defenders. 4 communication relays destroyed. The Kepler system was now effectively isolated from the outside galaxy. Whatever happened in the next few hours, the Zephyrians wouldn't be able to call for immediate help. Marcus turned his attention to the mining platforms, and what he saw there made him catch his breath. Every single platform was in chaos. Explosions bloomed along their superstructures as critical systems overloaded or were sabotaged. Emergency lights painted the metal surfaces in harsh reds and yellows. Most incredibly, Marcus could see small ships, maintenance pods, cargo shuttles, even improvised craft made from mining equipment launching from the platforms in growing streams. The slaves weren't just rebelling. They were evacuating. Meridian to any friendly forces, Marcus broadcast on the frequency Lisa had given him. "This is Marcus Chen. Communication relays are down. What's your status?" Lisa's voice came back immediately, but she was clearly in the middle of combat. The sound of weapons fire and shouting filled the background. "Marcus, we've taken 8 of the 12 platforms." Resistance was lighter than expected. Most guards surrendered when they realized they were outnumbered 50-1. "What about the other 4 platforms? Harder fighting there." The Zephyrians activated some kind of lockdown protocol. "We're working on it." An explosion echoed through her transmission. "How long before enemy reinforcements arrive?" Marcus checked his intelligence files. "Best case scenario, 6 days. But they might have patrol ships closer than my data indicates." "Copy that. We're implementing emergency evacuation protocols. All non-essential personnel are heading for the rally points now." Marcus watched the streams of small craft fleeing the platforms and felt a mixture of hope and dread. Thousands of beings were escaping slavery, but they were scattered across a hostile system with limited resources and nowhere safe to run. Lisa, you need a better exit strategy. Those ships won't last long in deep space. Working on it. Sarah has some kind of plan, but she won't tell me what until we secure the last 4 platforms. Marcus was about to reply when his sensors detected something that made his blood run cold. 3 large ships were approaching the system from the direction of the main hyperspace route and their energy signatures matched Zephyrian military vessels. Lisa, we have a problem. 3 enemy warships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're moving fast toward your position. The transmission was quiet for several seconds. When Lisa's voice returned, it carried a grim determination that reminded Marcus of her Saurian persona. How long? 40 minutes until they reach the platforms. Then, we have 40 minutes to finish this. Marcus plotted an intercept course for the incoming warships. The Meridian was fast and well-armed, but taking on 3 Zephyrian cruisers would be suicide. Still, he might be able to buy the rebels some time. Computer, full sensor analysis of the approaching vessels. I want to know everything about their capabilities. The AI's response was immediate and disturbing. Vessels identified as Zephyrian fast assault cruisers, Torment class. Primary armament, plasma cannons and particle beam arrays. Secondary armament, boarding pods and capture systems. Analysis suggests these are slave recovery vessels, not standard military units. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. The Zephyrians hadn't sent warships to destroy the rebels, they'd sent specialized vessels designed to recapture escaped slaves alive. That meant they valued their property enough to risk significant resources recovering them. It also meant the rebels were in even more danger than he'd realized. Lisa, those aren't regular military ships. They're slave catchers. Heavily armed, designed for boarding actions. They're coming to drag everyone back in chains. Copy that. Lisa's voice carried no fear, only cold anger. Then, we make sure there's nothing left for them to catch. Marcus watched in fascination and horror as the mining platforms began a coordinated self-destruction sequence. Explosions rippled across their superstructures as critical systems were overloaded beyond their safety limits. But these weren't random acts of vandalism. Every detonation was precisely timed to maximize damage to the Zephyrians' investment while allowing maximum time for slave evacuation. Sarah's plan, Marcus breathed, understanding. Scorched earth. If they can't take back their slaves, they at least deny the Zephyrians their mining operations. Platform after platform went dark as their primary systems failed. Years of infrastructure, billions of credits worth of equipment, entire industrial complexes built on the backs of slave labor, all of it reduced to drifting metal and shattered dreams. But the evacuation was slowing down. Marcus could see that several platforms were still launching escape craft, but the rate had dropped significantly. The remaining 4 platforms that Lisa had mentioned were clearly still under Zephyrian control. Marcus. Sarah Martinez's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional despite the chaos around her. I need you to do something that's going to seem insane. More insane than attacking a Zephyrian mining operation? I need you to broadcast a message on all frequencies. Full spectrum, maximum power. Make sure those incoming ships hear it clearly. Marcus felt a growing sense of unease. What kind of message? Tell them that this operation is being conducted under the authority of the Earth Defense Force. Tell them that any interference will be considered an act of war against humanity. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. Sarah, that's not true. This is an unauthorized operation. Earth doesn't even know we're here. Earth will know soon enough. Sarah's voice carried grim satisfaction. The communication records from this system will show Zephyrian forces engaging Earth Defense Force personnel in response to a humanitarian rescue operation. By the time anyone can investigate the details, public opinion will have forced Earth's hand. Marcus stared at the tactical display, understanding the full scope of what Sarah had planned. Not just a slave rebellion, a false flag operation designed to start an interstellar war. You're manipulating everyone, Marcus said quietly. the slaves, the Zephyrians, even Earth Command. I'm creating the conditions for justice, Sarah replied without apology. The Zephyrian Empire has been expanding unchecked for decades. Earth has the military power to stop them, but not the political will. This changes that. And if you're wrong? If starting this war leads to more suffering than it prevents? Then, history will judge me accordingly. Sarah's transmission ended. Marcus looked at the approaching warships, then, at the chaos of the mining platforms. Thousands of beings were fleeing slavery, some of them already free, others still trapped on the platforms under Zephyrian control. The wrong decision here could doom them all. But, the right decision might doom entire worlds. Computer, open a channel on all frequencies, Marcus said finally. Full power broadcast. Channel open. Marcus took a deep breath, thinking of his tattoo and the basement where desperate people had waited for rescue. Sometimes the choice between right and wrong wasn't clear. Sometimes you just had to choose which side of history you wanted to be on. This is Commander Marcus Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Meridian, he broadcast. You are interfering with a humanitarian rescue operation authorized under Galactic Accord Section 7. Any hostile action against Earth personnel or the civilians under our protection will be considered an act of war. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from this system. The lie hung in the void like a challenge. The response came faster than Marcus expected. A harsh Zephyrian voice filled the communication channel, speaking heavily accented standard, Earth vessel, you are in violation of Zephyrian territorial sovereignty. The property you are attempting to steal belongs to legally licensed operators under Empire law. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Property? Marcus felt anger building in his chest. These are sentient beings, not property. And, as of right now, they're under Earth's protection. Your protection means nothing here, human. This system belongs to the Empire. Marcus checked his weapons systems and felt a cold smile cross his face. Then, come and take it. The 3 Zephyrian warships began accelerating toward the mining platforms, their weapons charging for combat. Marcus plotted an intercept course that would put him between them and the fleeing slaves. In the distance, the last few platforms continued their death throes, billions of credits worth of infrastructure dying to buy freedom for a few thousand beings who'd never expected to see their homeworlds again. The war Sarah Martinez wanted was about to begin. The first Zephyrian salvo lit up space like an angry constellation. Particle beams and plasma bolts crisscrossed the void where the Meridian had been moments before, but Marcus had already moved, his ship dancing between the deadly energy streams with inhuman precision. Computer, evasive pattern Echo 9. Target the lead vessel's engine clusters. The Meridian's AI responded instantly, launching a spread of guided missiles while simultaneously diving toward the asteroid field. The lead Zephyrian cruiser tried to track the attack, but its targeting systems couldn't lock onto a ship that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Marcus felt the satisfaction of watching his missiles impact against the cruiser's shields, but the feeling was short-lived. The shields held, and now all 3 enemy vessels were converging on his position with murderous intent. Marcus! Lisa's voice crackled over the communication channel. Status report. We can see the weapons fire from here. Engaging 3 cruisers, Marcus replied through gritted teeth, pulling his ship into a violent spiral to avoid another weapons barrage. How's the evacuation proceeding? 7 platforms clear, but we're still fighting for the last 5. The Zephyrians activated some kind of lockdown system that's trapping people inside. We need more time. Time. The one thing Marcus couldn't give them. His ship was fast and well-armed, but taking on 3 cruisers simultaneously was beyond even the Meridian's capabilities. He could delay them, maybe disable one if he was very lucky, but eventually their superior numbers would tell. An idea began forming in his mind. Dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it might work. Computer, analyze the asteroid field composition. I need gravitational stress points and structural weak spots. While the AI worked, Marcus led the Zephyrian ships deeper into the asteroid field, using the massive rocks as cover and obstacles. His ship's superior maneuverability gave him an advantage here. The larger cruisers had to be more careful about collision avoidance. Analysis complete, the computer announced. Asteroid designated Alpha 7 shows critical structural instability. A precisely placed explosive charge could trigger a cascade collapse affecting 17 nearby masses. Marcus smiled grimly. Mark Alpha 7 as priority target. Prepare all remaining torpedoes for simultaneous launch. Warning, such an attack will likely destroy this vessel due to proximity to the blast zone. Noted. Hold until my command. The Zephyrian ships were closing in, their weapons fire growing more accurate as they learned to predict his evasive patterns. Marcus's shields were holding, but energy readings showed they wouldn't last much longer under this kind of punishment. Earth vessel. The same harsh voice from earlier filled the communication channel. Your resistance is futile. Surrender now and we will grant you the mercy of a quick death. Marcus opened a channel in response. This is Commander Chen. I have a counter-proposal. Withdraw from this system and I won't turn you and your ships into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The Zephyrian's laugh was like breaking glass. Brave words from a doomed pilot. You are outnumbered and outgunned. What could you possibly? Marcus triggered his torpedo spread. 12 guided missiles streaked away from the Meridian, but, instead of targeting the enemy ships, they converged on the massive asteroid that his computer had identified. The warheads detonated simultaneously, their combined force driving deep into the rock's already stressed core structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, Alpha 7 began to crack. The fracture spread with geometric progression, weakening an already unstable mass that had been held together more by inertia than actual structural integrity. As the cracks reached critical stress points, the entire asteroid came apart in a chain reaction that involved every nearby mass in the field. The result was spectacular and terrifying. Chunks of rock the size of city blocks hurtled through space with devastating force, creating a chaotic maze of debris moving at orbital velocities. The carefully mapped passages through the asteroid field became death traps as gravitational forces shifted and new collision hazards appeared with every passing second. The Zephyrian ships found themselves caught in the middle of a cosmic avalanche. Marcus watched through his viewports as the lead cruiser tried desperately to avoid a house-sized chunk of rock that was tumbling directly toward its bridge. The ship's emergency thrusters fired, pushing it out of the immediate path of destruction, but directly into the path of 3 smaller asteroids moving at different vectors. The cruiser's shields flared and overloaded under the multiple impacts. Armor plating buckled and tore as rocks that had been floating peacefully for millennia suddenly became kinetic weapons capable of cracking military-grade hulls. Warning, the computer announced. Debris field expanding toward our position. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Marcus was already moving, pushing the Meridian toward the edge of the chaos zone at maximum acceleration. Behind him, the 3 Zephyrian ships were fighting for their lives against an enemy they couldn't shoot, a field of debris that followed the implacable laws of physics rather than military tactics. One cruiser escaped the worst of the destruction, but its sister ships weren't as fortunate. Marcus watched the second vessel disappear in a cascade of impacts that left it drifting powerless, its hull breached in dozens of places. The third ship simply vanished when a particularly large asteroid fragment struck its reactor core and turned the entire vessel into an expanding ball of plasma. The surviving cruiser limped away from the debris field, its hull scarred and its weapons systems clearly damaged. Marcus considered pursuing it, but his sensors were detecting something that changed his priorities completely. Marcus. Lisa's voice carried triumph and exhaustion in equal measure. All platforms secured. The lockdown system has been disabled and the last evacuees are launching now. Marcus felt relief wash over him as he watched the tactical display update. Streams of small craft were fleeing the mining platforms, heading for rally points that Sarah Martinez had established throughout the system. Thousands of beings who'd been slaves that morning were now free. But the celebration was premature. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected, the computer announced with mechanical calm. Large vessels emerging from hyperspace at system perimeter. Marcus felt his heart sink as the tactical display populated with new contacts. Not 3 ships this time, 12. And these weren't hastily deployed slave catchers. The energy signatures matched heavy battle cruisers, ships designed for serious warfare. Lisa, we have a problem. Major Zephyrian fleet just arrived. 12 heavy cruisers, moving fast toward our position. The communication channel was quiet for several seconds. When Lisa's voice returned, it carried the weight of someone making an impossible decision. How long until they reach us? Marcus ran the calculations. 90 minutes at current speed. Then, we have 90 minutes to disappear. Marcus watched the evacuation streams and felt despair creeping in. The escaped slaves were traveling in everything from proper shuttles to improvised craft barely capable of atmospheric flight. There was no way they could outrun military vessels designed for pursuit. Lisa, most of those ships can't make it to hyperspace before the cruisers catch up. They need more time. I know. Lisa's voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the pain behind it. Sarah and I are discussing options. Marcus stared at the incoming fleet, then, at the streams of refugees fleeing toward uncertain freedom. The mathematics were brutal and clear: someone was going to have to buy time for the evacuation to succeed. Computer, full analysis of incoming vessels. I want to know everything about their capabilities and deployment patterns. The AI's response painted a grim picture. The Zephyrian fleet was moving in a standard pursuit formation, designed to encircle and capture fleeing targets rather than destroy them. They still wanted their slaves back alive, which meant they'd be trying to disable rather than destroy the refugee ships. That gave Marcus an idea. Dangerous, almost certainly fatal, but possible. Computer, calculate hyperspace jump coordinates for the Vega system. Plot a course that will take us directly through the incoming fleet's formation. Warning, such a course will expose this vessel to concentrated enemy fire during the jump preparation sequence. Survival probability is estimated at less than 12%. Noted. Also calculate broadcast parameters for a system-wide emergency signal. Maximum power, all frequencies. Marcus opened a channel to Lisa. I have a plan, but you're not going to like it. I'm listening. I'm going to jump to Vega and broadcast a distress signal claiming that the escaped slaves are heading there. The Zephyrians will follow me instead of pursuing the real evacuation fleet. Marcus, that's suicide. They'll destroy your ship the moment you enter hyperspace. Maybe. But it'll give the refugees time to reach the rally points and scatter. By the time the Zephyrians realize they've been deceived, thousands of people will be safely hidden throughout the galaxy. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. There has to be another way. Is there? Marcus asked gently. Look at your tactical display, Lisa. Look at those refugee ships and tell me they can outrun a pursuit fleet. The channel remained silent, but Marcus could see the truth in the sensor readings. The slowest refugee vessels were barely making 1/4 light speed. The Zephyrian cruisers could overtake them within hours. Sarah wants to talk to you, Lisa said finally. A new voice came over the channel, calm, professional, carrying the authority of someone used to making life and death decisions. Marcus, this is Sarah. I need you to understand something before you do this. Earth will investigate what happened here. When they do, they'll find evidence that you died defending civilians from Zephyrian aggression. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten. Marcus felt a bitter laugh escape his throat. You mean it'll be useful propaganda for the war you're trying to start? Yes, Sarah replied without apology. But that doesn't make it less meaningful. You have a chance to save thousands of lives and strike a blow against one of the most evil empires in the galaxy. Most people never get an opportunity like that. Marcus thought of his tattoo, of the fake brand that had saved his life 15 years ago. Sarah Martinez had marked him for salvation then, just as she was marking him for sacrifice now. The symmetry was almost poetic. Computer, begin hyperspace jump sequence. Destination, Vega system. Jump sequence initiated. 30 seconds to hyperspace entry. Marcus. Lisa's voice carried a mixture of gratitude and grief. Take care of them, Marcus said simply. All of them. Human, alien, whatever they are, make sure they get home. I will. The Zephyrian fleet was still closing when the Meridian's hyperspace drive engaged. Marcus felt the familiar sensation of reality bending around his ship as it prepared to tear through the fabric of spacetime. The enemy cruisers realized what was happening and opened fire, but they were too late. The Meridian vanished into hyperspace, carrying with it the hopes and fears of thousands of freed slaves. Behind them, the evacuation fleet scattered to the stellar winds, 12 different groups heading for 12 different destinations throughout the galaxy. By the time the Zephyrians reached the mining platforms, they found only empty metal and the wreckage of their industrial investment. The largest slave rebellion in galactic history was over. But the real war was just beginning. 6 months after the Kepler Rebellion, Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance, watching the combined human fleet prepare for the largest military operation in galactic history. 200 warships hung in perfect formation against the star field, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor and determination. He shouldn't have been there. The Meridian had been destroyed in the Vega system, torn apart by Zephyrian weapons fire during the desperate chase that followed his diversionary jump. Everyone believed Commander Marcus Chen had died heroically defending civilian refugees from alien oppression. In reality, he'd escaped in a damaged life pod and spent 3 weeks drifting in space before a passing freighter found him. By then, the galaxy had exploded into war. Second thoughts? Admiral Rebecca Torres asked, joining him at the massive viewports. She was the architect of humanity's military response to Zephyrian aggression, a brilliant strategist who'd turned public outrage over the Kepler massacre into the largest fleet mobilization since the founding of Earth government. Just thinking about how we got here, Marcus replied. He wore the uniform of a fleet intelligence analyst now, his supposed death having given him a new identity and a chance to see the war from a different perspective. The Zephyrians made it easy for us, Torres said with grim satisfaction. When they released footage of their heroic defense against human terrorism, they thought they were justifying their actions. Instead, they showed the galaxy exactly what their empire really is. Marcus had seen the footage. Zephyrian propaganda broadcasts showing the destroyed mining platforms, the escaped slaves, the damage to their fleet. What the aliens had intended as proof of human aggression, the galaxy had interpreted as evidence of systematic oppression finally being challenged. The political response had been swift and overwhelming. Dozens of species that had suffered under Zephyrian expansion suddenly found their voices. Trade agreements were cancelled, diplomatic ties severed, and military alliances formed with breathtaking speed. Any word from our deep cover assets? Marcus asked. Torres smiled, an expression that didn't reach her eyes. Dr. Park's network has been invaluable. The intelligence we're receiving from inside Zephyrian territory is better than anything we hoped for. Marcus nodded, though thinking of Lisa still made his chest tight with complicated emotions. She'd become a legend in the months since Kepler, Veskara the Liberator, the shapeshifter who moved between worlds organizing resistance cells and gathering intelligence. Her network of freed slaves had become the most effective intelligence apparatus in the galaxy. But she'd also become something that was no longer entirely human. Sir? A young ensign approached with obvious nervousness. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Sector Command. Eyes only, highest classification. Torres took the data pad and read quickly, her expression growing increasingly grim. Mr. Chen, I think you need to see this. Marcus read over her shoulder and felt the blood drain from his face. The transmission was from Sarah Martinez, now revealed as Earth's top covert operative in Zephyrian space. Her message was brief and terrifying. Zephyrians have activated something called the Cleansing Protocol. massive fleet movements detected throughout their empire. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to eliminate all slave populations rather than risk further uprisings. Estimate 40 million lives at immediate risk. Recommend immediate action. 40 million, Torres breathed. They're going to commit genocide rather than face rebellion. Marcus stared at the tactical display showing the human fleet. 200 ships seemed like an overwhelming force until you considered the size of the Zephyrian Empire, thousands of worlds, millions of ships, an industrial base that had been built on slave labor for centuries. Admiral, our fleet isn't large enough to stop something like this. No, Torres agreed. But, we might not need to. She activated a communications array that linked to every ship in the fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Torres. Prepare to implement Operation Thunderclap. All department heads report to the command center immediately. As the fleet began coordinating for whatever Torres had planned, Marcus found himself thinking about the tattoo hidden beneath his sleeve. The fake brand that had saved his life 15 years ago had ultimately led to this moment, humanity's first major war in over a century, fought not for territory or resources, but for the principle that no sentient being should live in chains. The command center quickly filled with the fleet's senior officers. Torres activated a massive holographic display showing the known galaxy, with Zephyrian territory marked in threatening red. Ladies and gentlemen, Torres began, 6 hours ago, our deep cover assets confirmed that the Zephyrian Empire has begun implementing what they call the Cleansing Protocol. Rather than risk further slave uprisings, they've decided to eliminate their slave populations entirely. A murmur of horror ran through the assembled officers. Even hardened military personnel were shaken by the scope of the proposed massacre. Our mission parameters have changed, Torres continued. We're no longer fighting a defensive action against Zephyrian expansion. We're now conducting a humanitarian intervention to prevent the largest genocide in galactic history. Captain Maria Santos, commanding officer of the heavy cruiser Resolution, raised her hand. Admiral, our force isn't large enough to invade the entire Zephyrian Empire. Even if we could reach the slave worlds in time. We're not invading, Torres interrupted. We're inspiring. The holographic display shifted, showing communication networks that spanned the galaxy. Marcus recognized the pattern. It was Lisa's resistance network, grown far beyond its original scope. Dr. Park's intelligence network now includes assets on over 300 worlds, Torres explained. Freed slaves, sympathetic locals, resistance cells that have been waiting years for a signal that someone was finally fighting back. Operation Thunderclap will provide that signal. Torres gestured, and the display showed the fleet's projected course, a direct strike at the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. We're going to attack their capital system. Not to occupy it, but to prove that their empire isn't invincible. That their military can be defeated, their worlds can be liberated, their slaves can be freed. Captain Santos looked skeptical. Admiral, a symbolic victory won't save 40 million lives. It will if it sparks simultaneous uprisings across their entire territory. Torres's smile was sharp and predatory. Dr. Park has been preparing for this moment for months. The moment we engage their capital fleet, every resistance cell in the Empire activates simultaneously. Not just escapes, coordinated attacks on infrastructure, liberation of slave populations, systematic dismantling of their entire oppression apparatus. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. You're betting everything on a single coordinated strike. I'm betting everything on the principle that people who've been pushed far enough will fight back when they see others fighting alongside them. Torres turned to address the entire room. Every species the Zephyrians have conquered, every world they've stripped bare, every being they've enslaved, they're all connected through Dr. Park's network. Our attack on their capital will be the signal for the largest coordinated uprising in galactic history. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Instead of trying to fight the entire Zephyrian Empire, humanity would inspire it to tear itself apart from within. What about losses? Captain Santos asked quietly. Our fleet will be facing the entire Zephyrian Home Defense Force. Torres's expression sobered. Estimated survival rate for our forces is 30%. This is a one-way mission for most of us. The command center fell silent. 200 ships, 50,000 personnel, all gambling their lives on the hope that their sacrifice would inspire others to fight for freedom. Marcus thought of the refugees he'd watched fleeing the mining platforms, of Lisa's transformation from human scientist to galactic liberator, of Sarah Martinez's willingness to manipulate everyone around her in service of a greater cause. "When do we begin?" he asked. Torres checked her chronometer. "The fleet jumps to hyperspace in 4 hours. Transit time to the Zephyrian capital system is 18 hours. Dr. Park's network will monitor our approach and activate the moment we engage their defenses." Over the next 4 hours, Marcus watched the fleet make its final preparations. Ships took on additional ammunition and supplies, crews recorded final messages for families they might never see again, and engineers pushed reactor systems to maximum efficiency ratings. The most remarkable thing was the morale. Despite knowing they were flying into almost certain death, the crews worked with quiet determination and purpose. This wasn't about conquest or revenge, it was about proving that some principles were worth dying for. "Marcus." Torres found him in the observation deck again as the fleet prepared to jump. "I have something for you." She handed him a small data pad containing a message from Lisa. The communication was brief but carried weight that made his chest tighten. "Marcus, I know you survived Vega. Don't ask how. The network sees everything eventually. I wanted you to know that what we're about to do will work. The resistance cells are ready, the slave populations are prepared, and the Zephyrians have no idea what's coming. In 18 hours, this galaxy will be a very different place. Thank you for believing in the dream of freedom. Take care." Vescara. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Lisa knew he was alive, knew he was part of the fleet heading into battle. She'd kept his secret while building the foundation for galactic revolution. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," Torres announced over the fleet communication system. "This is Admiral Torres to all vessels. In a few hours, we're going to do something that will be remembered for centuries. We're going to prove that freedom is stronger than oppression, that hope is more powerful than fear, and that sometimes the only way to stop evil is to stand up and fight." The fleet jumped to hyperspace as one entity, 200 ships carrying humanity's hopes into the heart of enemy territory. 18 hours later, they emerged from hyperspace in the Zephyrian capital system to find exactly what they'd expected: a massive defense fleet waiting for them. Hundreds of enemy vessels arranged in perfect formation, their weapons charging for what the Zephyrians clearly expected to be a quick and decisive battle. What the aliens didn't expect was the message that began broadcasting on every frequency in the galaxy the moment the human fleet opened fire. "This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Earth Defense Force. To all beings living under oppression, to all slaves dreaming of freedom, to all worlds conquered by tyranny, today we fight together. The Zephyrian Empire ends now." Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds where beings had suffered under alien oppression, resistance cells that had been waiting years for this moment finally acted. Mining operations were sabotaged, communication networks were seized, slave compounds were opened, and local defense forces found themselves facing coordinated uprisings they'd never imagined possible. The battle for the Zephyrian capital was brutal and brief. The human fleet fought with desperate courage, trading ships and lives for every minute they could buy for the uprisings to spread. When the last human vessel finally succumbed to enemy fire, 60% of the Zephyrian home defense force had been destroyed. More importantly, the galaxy had heard humanity's message. Within 72 hours, the Zephyrian Empire collapsed completely. Not conquered by external force, but torn apart from within by its own oppressed peoples, finally given hope that resistance was possible. Marcus Chen survived the battle, one of the few humans to escape in a damaged shuttle before his ship was destroyed. Months later, as he watched the formation of the new Galactic Liberation Council, an alliance of formerly enslaved species working together to prevent future oppression, he thought about the strange chain of events that had led to this moment. A fake tattoo, applied in desperation 15 years earlier, had become the symbol of the galaxy's largest liberation movement. The mark that had once identified him as property had evolved into proof that no being belonged to another. Lisa Park had become something beyond human classification, a bridge between species, a leader who understood oppression from the inside and fought it with the combined strength of dozens of different peoples. The scared scientist who'd volunteered for experimental procedures had transformed into the galaxy's greatest liberator. Sarah Martinez had gotten her war, but not the one she'd planned. Instead of humanity conquering the Zephyrian Empire, she'd helped create something better, a galaxy where the principle of freedom had been proven stronger than the machinery of oppression. And Marcus himself had learned that sometimes the most important battles weren't the ones you chose to fight, but the ones you couldn't avoid once you understood what was at stake. The tattoo on his arm had faded over the years, but its meaning had grown beyond anything Captain Martinez could have imagined when she first applied the ink. It had become proof that sometimes, in the darkest moments, hope could be found in the most unlikely places. And, sometimes, that hope was enough to change everything.